A to Z Mysterious, The Goose's Gold by Ron Roy. Chapter 1. Hi Mom, I'm in Florida, Ding said into the phone. He glanced out the airport large windows. I can see palm trees, and it's about 80 degrees. Donald David Duncan, known as Dink to his friends, was on winter vacation from school. He, Josh, and Ruth Rose were visiting Ruth Rose's grandmother. She lived on an island called Key West. Dink's mother told him to have a wonderful time. And remember your manners. Dink grinned into the phone. What manners? Just joking, Mom. See you in a few days. Dink hung in the phone. As he bent over to pick up his backpack, he saw a pair of feet in the next booth. They were tan and in sandals. One hairy ankle had the tattoo of an eagle's head. Dink heard the man's voice. He was whispering, "Then we take the dough and spilled. They'll never find us." Take the dough and spilled? Was this guy planning a robbery? Dink wondered. He leaned toward the other booth so he could hear better. "Those old cookies are loaded," the man whispered. We got in and out, then we drowned the goose and disappeared. Dink blinked. Loaded cookies? Drowned the goose? What was going on here? Suddenly, Josh snapped his fingers in front of Dink's face. "Earth to Dink," he said. "Come on, we have to find my grandmother," said Ruth Rose. Dink stepped away from the phone. He peeked into the next booth, but it was empty. Dink hurried after Josh and Ruth Rose. "You guys aren't going to believe what I just heard," he said. "I think some guy is planning a robbery." Josh and Ruth Rose looked at Dink. "Are you kidding?" Ruth Rose asked. "No, honest," Dink said. Dink tried to imitate the way the man had whispered. He said, "Take the dough and drown the goose." Josh looked at his friend. "That's it?" Dink nodded. "Well, he also said something about loaded cookies." "Maybe he said bake the dough and brown the goose," Ruth Rose said. "Sound like he was a chef, not a robber." Suddenly, they heard someone called, "Yoo-hoo, kid! Over here!" "There she is!" Ruth Rose said excitedly. "Hi, Gram!" The kid hurried over to a smiling woman with white hair. "Honey, how you grown?" Ruth Rose's grandmother said. She gave Ruth Rose a hug. "Merry Christmas!" Ruth Rose blushed. "Thanks, Gram. These are my best friend, Dink and Josh. Guys, this is Gram Hathaway." Gram Hathaway was short and tan. She wore shorts, a purple t-shirt, and a baseball cap backward. Gram shook hands with the boys. "I heard a lot about you two," she said. "Got your bags? Let's go home and have a nice supper." Ruth Rose's grandmother led them through the exit doors. The evening was hot and humid. Everyone wore shorts and sandals. "Boy, back home we had a foot of snow," Josh said. "I can't wait to see the ocean." "There's a lovely beach not far from my house," Ruth Rose's Gram said. "I think you'll find the water pretty warm for December." They piled into her small white car. "Buckle up, everyone," she said. Dink and Josh climbed in the pack. Dink also sat on a pair of inline skates. "Just dump those on the floor," Gram said. Josh snuck Dink a look. "Do you skate?" he asked Ruth Rose's grandmother. She winked at Josh in the rearview mirror. "Only on Tuesdays and Fridays. The rest of the weeks I jog or swim." A few minutes later, they were zooming along a busy street. Dink watched the tall palm trees as the car whizzed past them, the rows of neat houses. He caught glimpses of blue sea and nearly white sand. "Look, a pelican!" Josh cried, pointing out the window. "You'll see plenty of those here," Gram Hathaway said, "and they aren't afraid of people. I saw one swoop down and snatch a girl's ice cream cone." "They better not try that with me," Josh said. "Here we are," Gram Hathaway said. She pulled her car into a driveway surrounded by rose bushes. Dink saw a small pink house with blue shutters. Window boxes were filled with bright flowers. Pot of pink geranium sat on the front step. "You got an awesome house, Mrs. Hathaway," Josh said. She laughed. Oh, please call me Graham, and thank you. The kid followed Graham into a yellow living room. In one corner, a Christmas tree stood on the table. Okay, drop your bags and let's eat. Graham led Rose and Josh into her kitchen. I hope you like fried chicken. Then followed slowly. He couldn't stop thinking about the man on the telephone. If he was just talking about food, Dink wondered, why was he whispering? Chapter 2. I smell cookies, Josh said the next morning. Dink rolled over and looked at Josh. He was sitting up in bed with his nose in the air. Dink grinned. You look like a rabbit, Josh. No, I'm serious, Josh said. He walked over to the window and took a deep whiff. Yeah, it's cookies with chocolate chips. They heard a knock on their bedroom door. Hurry up, you guys, Rose said. Graham is making breakfast. Dink and Josh scrambled into shorts and t-shirts. They did a quick job of washing up, then hurried down the stairs. Graham had a waistsuit at the stove, spooning pancake batter onto a hot griddle. She was wearing running gear and her hair was tied in a red bandana. Good morning, boys. How you sleep? Great, Dink said, except Josh snorted all right. Ha! Rose laughed as she poured orange juice into 4 glasses. She liked to dress all in one color. Today, she was wearing green shorts, a green t-shirt, and green jelly shoes. Josh glanced at the stove. I thought I smelled chocolate chip cookies. Graham smiled. What an observant young man. There's a batch in the oven that's almost done. Josh nudged Dink. See, I'm an observant young man. Graham brought a platter of pancakes to the table. I'm baking cookies for our company. Who's the company, Graham? Rose asked. Her grandmother smiled mysteriously. It's a surprise. You'll have to wait and see. While they ate breakfast, Graham told the kids about some of the sights to see on the island. Be sure to take a ride on the old town trolley, she said. It's good all over town. How do we get to the beach? Josh asked. Just walk to the end of my street, then turn right, Graham said. 2 more blocks and you'll see the water. Can we help you clean up? Rose asked. I'll clean up after my run, Graham replied. You kids go have fun, and I'll see you for lunch. The kids each grabbed a warm cookie, then hurried outside. 10 minutes later, they were carrying their sneakers and wading in the ocean. Dink was looking at guys' feet on the beach. He saw plenty of ankle tattoos, but none were eagles. From the beach, they walked up some steps to a wide concrete pier. There were benches and tables, and vendors selling food and souvenirs. A man was juggling oranges and grapefruit. Big grape pelicans sat on posts waiting for tourists to feed them. Let's go see those boats, Josh suggested, pointing toward the long wooden dock. The kid ran along the beach and crossed over to the dock. Dink saw a sign that said, Watch for splinters and fish hooks, no bare feet. People were lined up, fishing. One little girl shouted, then pulled up a silver fish the size of Dink's hand. The kid pulled on their shoes and hiked along the long dock. Boats were nestled in sheep slips on both sides. Everywhere they looked, people were washing, polishing, or painting their boats. I wish I had a sailboat, Josh said as they continued along the dock. I'll live on it and sail around the world. What about me and Dink? Rose asked. Oh, I hire you as my cook, Josh told Rose. You could make me cookies and pizza. He nudged Dink with his hip, and Dinkus could wash my clothes and make my bed. Yeah, right, Dink said, and make you walk in the plank. Listen, I heard music, Josh said. A radio stood at the end of the dock, next to a man holding a paintbrush. He was painting curly gold letters on the side of a white boat. So far, he finished G and O. Smears of gold speckles, the man's 10 fingers. He was short, but the muscles on his arm made him look like a weightlifter. Another man stood next to him, eating a muffin. He was tall and skinny, with a blonde ponytail. Both men wore tank tops over baggy jeans. The skinny man nodded at the kid. Howdy, he said. I like your boat, said Josh. Do you live on it? The skinny man turned down the radio. "There are two beds up front," he said, "a kitchen and a bathroom too." Dink noticed a yellow rubber dinghy strapped along one side of the boat. Two long fishing poles were lying on the deck. "Is it a fishing boat?" Dink asked. The skinny man shook his head. "No, we after treasure. We dive for gold." "You do?" Josh said. "Cool." The man waved his muffin out at the ocean. "There are plenty of sunken ships out there," he said, grinning. "Me and Spike were here, found one." The man with the paintbrush gave his friend a sharp look. "Chip, maybe this kid don't have to know our business," he said. Chip shrugged. "Just being neighborly," he said. Spike went back to his painting. "Did you find any gold yet?" Josh asked. Chip looked at Spike. "Yeah, we got some," Spike said. "Could we see it?" Rose asked. Spike thought for a minute, then handed Chip his paintbrush. "Sure, why not?" he said. "Come aboard and wash your feet." Spike climbed down some stairs to a little cabin. When he came back up, he had something shiny in his hand. "These are Spanish coins," Spike told the kid, "almost 400 years old." The kid stared at the gold coins in Spike's hand. "Pretty neat, huh?" he said. The large gold coins gleam in the sun. "Awesome," Josh said. Chapter 3. The kid thanked Spike and Chip and walked back along the dock. "I wonder how much those coins are worth," Josh said. "A lot," Rose said. Josh sighed. "Wouldn't it be so cool to dive for treasure?" "Josh," Dink said, "you need to know how to use an air tank and everything. They go down deep." Across the street, a small orange train was loading up with passengers. "There's the trolley," Rose said. "Let's catch it." The kid rushed over. They climbed aboard and sat right behind the driver. When most of the seats were filled, the trolley gave a jolt, then moved down the street. "Where does the trolley go?" Dink asked the driver. "We go everywhere, my man," said the driver. He handed Dink a map. "See those blue circles? Those are my steps. You can get off at any of them, then hop back on when I come by again." The driver stopped the train in front of a white building with overflowing flower boxes. The sign in front of the building read, "Mel Fisher's Treasure Museum. See Spanish, gold, and silver inside." "Who's Mel Fisher?" Dink asked the driver. "Mel Fisher found an old Spanish ship loaded with gold and silver," he said. "Some of what he found is in this museum." He pointed at the sign. "Why don't you kids hop off and check it out? I'll swing by again in about 45 minutes. "All right," Josh said. The kids got off the trolley and followed a few of the other sightseers to the museum. Inside were rows of glass cases. Each case had held gleaming gold, silver, or jewelry. The kids walked around the room, staring at the priceless treasures. After a while, Rose stopped in front of a picture of Mel Fisher. He was wearing a long gold chain. The real chain was displayed in a glass case below the picture. "Listen," Rose said. "This solid gold chain was made in 1622 and weighed 200 pounds. It is worth more than $1 million. "Boy, imagine wearing that around your neck," Josh said. Dink was looking at a picture of Mel Fisher's boat. "Look, this says it took him almost 20 years to find the treasure." Speaking of food, let's get some lunch," Josh said. We weren't talking about food," Rose said. "Well, my stomach was," said Josh. "Looking at treasure makes me hungry." A few minutes later, the trolley stopped back at the museum. "What do you think of all that gold?" the driver asked them. "Pretty amazing, huh?" "Did Mel Fisher get to keep everything he found?" Dink asked. The driver shook his head. "Some had to go to the state of Florida, but he and his investor got rich on the rest." "What investor?" Josh asked. "People who lent Mel Fisher money," said the driver. "Fisher had to borrow a lot to buy equipment and pay his crew. When he struck it rich, he had paid his investors back with gold." The man grinned in his mirror. "Wish he asked me to invest." A few minutes later, the kid said goodbye and hopped off the trolley. They raced home and rushed into Graham Hathaway's kitchen. How was your morning? She asked. We rode on the trolleygram, Rose said. The driver was so nice. He dropped us off at the Mel Fisher Museum, Dink said. And we met two guys who died for treasure, Josh added. We went on their boat and saw real gold coin. Rose's grandmother smiled. I'm glad you got to see some treasures, she said with sparkling eyes. Now, let me tell you about your special company. Their names are Spike and Chip. Chapter 4. Gram, how do you know Spike and Chip? Rose asked. Watch up for lunch and I'll tell you all about it, her grandmother said. The kids crowded around the kitchen sink and washed their hands. A few weeks ago, Spike and Chip came to my senior center, Rose's Gram said. She set a plate of sandwiches on the table. The kids wiped their hands and sat down. They told us all about the treasure they found. Gram continued. She's poured lemonade. Now they are looking for investors. Just like Mel Fisher, Dink said. He reached for a tuna sandwich. That's right, Dink, Gram said. Josh heaped 3 sandwiches onto his plate. Are you gonna get rich? He asked. Rose's grandmother laughed. We'll have to wait and see, she said. Anyway, we're each thinking about investing $10,000. Gram, Rose said. Her grandmother's eyes twinkled. I know, it's just a little scary. Boy, I'll do anything to go with them when they die for treasure, Josh said. That reminds me, Gram said. She took 3 presents off the counter. Merry Christmas. Wow, thanks, Gram, said Rose. Yeah, thanks, said Dink and Josh. They're all the same, Gram Hathaway said. That way you won't have to share. The kids pulled off the paper. Inside they each found a book called Finding Sunken Treasure in Florida. The cover showed a boat like the one Mel Fisher had used. Under the boat was a sunken ship. Divers were searching the wreck and bringing up treasure. I thought you had fun learning about shipwrecks, said Gram, since I might be investing in one. This is so neat, Josh said. Thanks a lot. Rose's grandmother stood up. You're very welcome. Now, I have to get busy. Spike and Chip will be here in an hour. Can you help me set up the living room? Sure, Dink said. What do you want us to do? I'll need about 10 folding chairs. They're in the hall closet and brings out the 3 card tables. The kid arranged the tables and chairs around the living room. Gram Hathaway set out covered plates of cookies on one of the table. Can we stay for the meetings? Rose asked. Of course, her grandmother said. After you read those books, I expect you to ask intelligent questions. The kids took their books out to the front porch. Look, Josh said, there's a whole chapter just about Mel Fisher. Rose pointed to a map showing sunken ships. They're all off the coast of Florida, she said. If each one has treasure on it, think how much that is. Josh lay back on the porch and closed his eyes. I'm staying here when you guys go back home. I'm gonna become a treasure hunter. Dink laughed. You find treasure? You couldn't find your shorts with this morning, Josh. Josh jabbed Dink with his knee. Call me Captain Josh, please. Just then a car pulled up. 2 gray-haired women climbed out and hurried toward the house. I'm going in to help Gram, Rose said. We'll help too, said Dink. He nudged Josh. Come on, Captain Josh. Before they could go inside, a yellow cab stopped out front. Spike and Chip climbed out. Spike was carrying a wooden box. They were both dressed in clean pants, pressed shirts, and sandals. Hi, Josh said as the 2 men walked up the sidewalk. Spike and Chip stared at the kids. Finally, Chip waved. How are you doing? Do you guys live around here? Rose laughed. No, we're visiting my grandmother. This is her house. Spike smiled. What a small world, he said. Can I carry the box in? Josh asked. Spike shrugged. It's pretty heavy. I can help, Dink said. They ran down the sidewalk, and Spike handed them the box. Josh grinned as they lugged the heavy box up the steps. My fingers feel all tingly, he said. Chapter 5. Gram Hathaway's living room was crowded with people. Spike and Chip sat at a small table with the box in front of them. Dink, Josh, and Rose perched on the stairs. Thank you all for coming, Gram told everyone. Then she smiled at Spike. He stood up. Thanks for inviting us, Spike said. Chip and I have been diving for a few years ago now. A couple weeks ago, we found a sunken ship. Chip opened the box. Spike reached in and pulled out a gold cross, about 8 inches tall. The gold shone warmly in the sunny room. Someone said, "Oh my goodness." Spike gently laid the cross on the table. Next, he brought out a shiny hunk of silver, about the size of a big bar of soup. Then he spread a handful of gold coins on the table. "There's a lot more down there," he continued. "Well-found chains, silver goblets, even jewelry." Gam's friends got out of their seats and crowded around Spike and Chip. "May we touch it?" one woman asked. Spike laughed. "Can't hurt it, ma'am. It's been on the bottom of the ocean for almost 400 years. Josh was standing up so he could see. Graham Hathaway's friends were passing around the gold and silver. Spike," Josh said, "how did you get it so clean? Wouldn't it have barnacles and stuff all over it?" Spike grinned. "Good question," he said. "First, we soak the pieces. Then we rub them with regular old vinegar. You'll be surprised how easily it cleans up." Ruth-Rose's hand shot up. "Can I ask a question?" Spike nodded. "Ask anyway." "It took Mel Fisher 20 years to find his sunken ship," said Ruth-Rose. "How did you find yours so quickly?" Spike smiled. "I guess we were just lucky," he said. "And we had good maps," Chip added. Spike turned back to the group. "I'll hope you all consider investing with us," he said. "Once we can buy some more equipment, we'll start bringing up some serious treasure." Ruth-Rose's grandmother stood up. "Why don't we have refreshments now?" she said. Everyone began talking and filling small plates with cookies. Ruth-Rose went into the kitchen for the lemonade. Dink and Josh stayed on the stairs near the table of goodies. Spike and Chip stepped over to the refreshment table. Dink watched Spike take a few cookies. "These cookies are loaded with chocolate chips," Spike whispered to his friend. Dink was about to say something to Spike, but he stopped. He knew he had heard those words before. Dink closed his eyes and tried to remember the voice he overheard at the airport. Dink was positive the man had said, "Those cookies are loaded." Dink was almost sure it had been the same voice. He looked down for it too, but Spike's pants covered his ankle. The sandals looked the same, but a lot of people in Florida wore brown leather sandals. "What's the matter?" Ruth-Rose asked Dink. "You look like you smell something rotten." Dink stood up. "Come outside," he whispered. "It's important." Chapter 6. Josh and Ruth-Rose followed Dink through the living room to the porch. They sat on the front steps. "What's going on?" Josh asked. "I wasn't through with those cookies. Remember the guy I told you about at the airport yesterday?" Dink asked. "Talking on the phone?" Dink said. Ruth-Rose grinned. "Yeah, the cook you thought was planning a robbery." Dink turned around and looked through the screen door. "I think it was Spike." Josh and Ruth-Rose just stared at Dink. Finally, Josh said, "What are you talking about, Dinkus?" "I recognize his voice," Dink said. "The guys at the airport said the same thing, that some old cookies were loaded." Josh shook his head. "So? Don't you see?" Dink said. "Maybe he meant Graham Hathaway's friends are loaded with money." Suddenly, the door opened. The Graham's friends began coming out. They all seemed excited about investing with Spike and Chip. Then Spike and Chip came out, carrying the box of gold. Graham Hathaway followed them out the porch. "Thanks for calling us a cab, Mrs. Hathaway," Spike said. "Do you really think our friends will help us out?" Graham Hathaway smiled. "I wouldn't be a bit surprised. I'm going to talk to my banker on Monday morning." A yellow cab pulled up, and Spike and Chip climbed in with the box. They waved out the window as the cab sped away. "Wasn't that fun?" Ruth-Rose's grandmother said. She stepped back into the house. "There are plenty of goodies left if anyone is hungry," she called through the screen door. "Thanks, Gram," Ruth-Rose said. "She's pretty excited," she added after her grandmother had gone inside. "I will be too if I was gonna get rich," Josh said. Dink stood up. "Well, I don't think she's gonna get rich," he said. "I think she's gonna get robbed." "Robbed?" Ruth-Rose said. "Yeah," Dink said. "Spike and Chip could just take off with your grandmother's money." "But what about all that gold they just showed us?" Josh asked. Dink shook his head. I don't know about that, but I do know what I heard. You know what you thought you heard, Josh said. Besides, you don't know it was Spike. You never saw the guy on the phone. But I did see his feet, Dink said. He told Josh and Rose about the tattoo he'd seen on the man's ankle. It's a good thing I'm such an observant young man, Josh said. I know how we can settle this whole thing. How? Rose said. By finding out if it really was Spike that Dink heard on the phone. Dink looked at him. And how do we do that? Oh, observant one, Josh grinned. Easy. We get Spike to show us his tattoo. Chapter 7. Good idea, Dink said. Let's go to the dock. Hold on, Rose said. She opened the screen door, grabbed some towel, and yelled, Graham, we're going to the beach. Rose tossed towels to Dink and Josh as they walked down the sidewalk. What if Spike's still wearing long pants? She asked. Dink will think of something, Josh said. He grinned at Dink. Right? Dink shook his head. This was your idea. Besides, you're the observant one. They thought about it as they walked. When they reached the boat dock, they still hadn't figured out what to do. I know, Josh said. I'll tell him Dink is thinking of getting a tattoo. Then Spike will show us his. Dink laughed. Kids can get tattoos, Josh, he said. A few moments later, the kid reached Spike and Chip's boat slip, but the boat wasn't there. They're gone, Rose said. Now what? Dink asked. Shall we wait till they come back in? Why don't we hang out at the beach for a while? Josh suggested. That way we can have fun and watch for the boat as the same thing. Okay, Rose said, but we can't stay out late. Graham will worry. Let's run and kiss as pelicans, Josh yelled. He tottered down the dock and leaped onto the beach. The kids swam, searched for shells, and buried Josh in the sand. By 5 o'clock, their skin was itchy with sunburn and salt. Look, isn't that their boat? Rose asked. A white boat was pulling in at the end of the dock. I think it is, Josh said. Come on. The kids ran back along the dock. They reached the boat as Chip was securing the lines. Spike was behind the wheel, just shutting down the motor. Both men were wearing t-shirts and jeans. Spike's ankles were covered. Did you go diving? Josh asked. We dive every day, Spike said, stepping onto the dock. He patted his stomach. Right now, I need a couple of burgers. Ready, Chip? The kids walked with Spike and Chip to the end of the dock and said goodbye. We still didn't see a tattoo, Rose said as they headed for her grandmother's house. No, but I saw something else, Dink said. They finished painting the name of the boat. It's the Golden Goose. Josh looked at him. So? The guy at the airport says something about drowning a goose. Dink said. Maybe that's the goose he was talking about. But what does it mean? Rose said. Boat don't drown? Dink shook his head. I don't know. A few minutes later, they saw Rose's grandmother. She was weeding in her front garden. Hi, Gram, Rose called. She looked up and waved. Tomorrow we go back to the boat and try again, Dink said, keeping his voice low. You guys with me? What if Spike's still wearing long pants? Rose asked. Then I put my plan to work, Dink said. What plan? Josh asked. I'll tell him about the tattoo contest, said Dink. Josh stared at Dink. What contest? The one I just thought up, Dink said, tapping his head. I'm gonna hang a poster down by the dock. The poster still will announce a tattoo contest. Then I'll tell Spike and Chip about the contest. If Spike has a tattoo on his ankle, he might mention it or even show it to us. Dinkus wouldn't sound too long. Josh whispered loudly to Rose. I think it's brilliant. Rose said, Come on, I'll ask Graham for paper and markers. Chapter 8. Dink jumped out of bed. He shook Josh by the shoulder. Josh, get up. We're going back to the dock. Josh opened one eye. Time is it? He asked sleepily. Dink glanced at the clock next to his bed. Almost 8. Hurry up. Dink dressed in shorts and a t-shirt. He brushed his hair, and grabbed the poster he'd drawn the night before. Come on, Josh, he said, hurrying downstairs. Rose was sitting at the table, spreading peanut butter on a bagel. Graham's out of her morning swim, she said. She pushed the plate of bagels toward Dink. Where's Josh? Dink sat down and reached for the strawberry jam. Still waking up, he said. Dink unrolled the poster as Josh stumbled into the kitchen. His red hair was sticking straight up. This planet better work, he said. I was dreaming I was King Midas. Only everything I touched turned to chocolate. Josh got a bagel and read Dink's poster three sleepy eyes. At the bottom, Dink had drawn a man's arm with come on, tattoo contest on the pyre, Sunday night at 8. Cash prizes for the most creative tattoo. A tattoo of an owl. What happens when a bunch of people with tattoos show up and there's no contest? Josh asked. Dink shrugged. We have to find out if Spike has a tattoo on his ankle. Can you think of another way? Josh shrugged. All right then, let's get going, Dink said. They each grabbed an apple and headed for the dock. Dink carried the poster and 4 dumb bed. Even this early, people were strolling along the concrete pier. Dink tracked the poster to a light pole. Okay, now let's go find Spike and Chip, he said. They hurried to the dock. A few people were on their boat drinking coffee and enjoying the morning the sun. The golden goose was tied at the slip. Now the sound came from the boat. Think you still asleep? Josh asked. Dink shrugged. I don't hear any more snoring. Rose peered through one of the round cabin windows. Nobody's down there, she said. Look, the door's open, Josh said. They must be here. Dink stepped onto the boat deck and knocked on the wood. Hello? He called. Anyone home? Dink hopped back onto the dock. Maybe they went out for breakfast, he said. Let's wait. The kids sat in the sun. A pelican waddled around the dock, stopping at the edge of the boat. A woman tossed him some bread. Josh pulled his book out and began reading. Listen to this, he said. No matter how long it has been on the bottom of the ocean, gold stays shiny, but silver requires several days in a special chemical solution before it looks shiny again. Josh looked up. Yesterday, Spike told everyone they cleaned the gold and silver with vinegar. The kids looked at each other. Dink got up and stepped aboard the golden goose. He walked around the deck, looking at everything and peeking into corners. He stood near an oxygen tank propped against a bench, then came back to the dock. That tank's empty, told Josh and Rose. How do you know? Dink asked. There's a round window with a dial, Dink said. The little arrow is pointing to we. So maybe they used up all the oxygen and haven't filled it up yet. Maybe, Dink said, but I don't see any other diving equipment. Rose stepped closer to the deck. Maybe they keep it down below, she said. She looked at the guys. I say we check it out. Me too, Dink said. Josh glanced back toward the pier. What if they come back and catch us snooping? He said. We'll tell them my grandmother sent us, Rose said. I'll say she wants to ask them more questions. I think they just pirate, Josh said. Josh, just looking on someone's boat doesn't make us pirate, Rose said. If they're trying to cheat my grandmother, I'm gonna find out. Come on, we won't touch anything. We'll just look around. She hopped aboard the boat and scooted down the cabin stairs. Josh and Dink followed. The tray stood in the middle of the small cabin. What a smell, Rose said. They aren't very neat, are they? Josh said. The beds were unmade, and the tiny kitchen was a jumble of dirty tissues and glasses. The small eating table was covered with sticky-looking stains. Dink glanced into a few dark colors. I still don't see. Shh! I heard something, Rose said. She pointed above their head. Suddenly, they all heard footsteps. The kids looked at each other, wide-eyed. Josh's face was white. Dink looked around the small cabin, then rushed toward the narrow door in the back. He yanked the door open and motioned for Josh and Rose to follow. Chapter 9. The kids found themselves crammed in the boat's tiny bathroom. There was no room to sit or turn around. The kids just stood and stared at each other. Suddenly, they heard heavy feet thunder down the cabin stairs. They held their breath. They heard a small thump, then a bigger one. Then the feet were walking again, this time going up the stairs. The small room got hot fast. Sweat ran into Dink's eyes. He could barely breathe. They waited, but heard no more noises. I smell scrambled eggs, Josh whispered into Dink's ear. Dink rolled his eyes. Well, I do, said Josh. Dink waited a few more minutes, then opened the door a crack. Cool air rushed into the bathroom. Dink quickly looked around the cabin. He could hear the man talking up above. He gently pulled the door shut. "They're up on deck," he said. "We can stay in the bathroom if one of them wants to use it." Will sunk. "Why don't we just leave?" Josh asked. "How do we explain why we're hiding in their boat?" Rose said. "It's too late." Dink slipped out of the bathroom and saw a trapdoor in the floor. Kneeling, Dink pulled the trapdoor open. Josh and Rose tiptoed out of the bathroom. Suddenly, the kids heard the roar. Then Dink felt the boat began to move backward. "They're taking the boat out," he whispered. "Come on down here." The kids scampered down into the boat hold. Dink lowered the door, opened their heads, except for a crack of light. Around the trapdoor, they were in darkness. "This place stinks like rotten fish," Josh said. "Now what?" Rose said. "I don't know," Dink answered. He thought for a moment. "They must be going out to the dive site," he said. "We'll have to hide till they decide to go back to the dock." "But that could be all day," Josh said. The kids squirmed around, trying to get comfortable. Dink put his eyes up to the crack and saw it on their side of the table. To the right, he could just make out the bottom stair leading up to the deck. "Ouch," Josh said suddenly. "I think I sat on an anchor, and I scraped my knees on a cinder block," Rose said. Dink moved his hand around the sloping wooden floor. His finger felt hard, scratchy surfaces, more cinder blocks, a bunch of them. Then he touched something squishy. "Guys, I found some life vests," Dink whispered. "Put them on." The kid struggled into the vest. Dink kept his eyes on the crack. He wanted to know if Spike or Chip came down into the cabin. "Whose idea was it to get on the boat?" Josh said. "I feel like a prisoner." You wanted to go out on a dive," Dink said. "You got your wish." "Yeah," Josh said, "but not trapped in some smelly dungeon." Dink saw a movement through the crack. A pair of bare feet were backing down the stairs. "Shh," he said. "They're coming down to the cabin." They heard footsteps, then voices. Shapes moved back and forth across the trapdoor. "This place is Pigpen," one of the men said. Dink recognized Spike's voice. "Why bother to clean it?" Chip answered. He giggled. "It gets real clean in a little while." Dink heard something scraped, then a thump right over his head. Through the crack, he saw skinny wooden legs. A stool or chair had been dragged up to the small table. "We got any juice?" Spike asked. "I doubt it," Chip answered. "I think there's milk." "They're eating breakfast," Josh hissed into Dink's ear. "I told you I smelled eggs." Then somebody sat down at the table. Dink could see one person's legs from the knee down. The leg was hairy and tan. Suddenly Dink gasped. Just inches from his eyes, he saw it too. It was an eagle's head. Chapter 10. Spike was the man he overheard at the airport. Suddenly, Chip was talking. "Yeah, no," he said. "I'm gonna miss this old tub when it's gone." "Not me," Spike answered. "When we get to the dough from the old folks, I'm buying the hottest car in Florida. I'm sick of living like a sardine." "So when do you want to do it?" Chip asked. "Soon as I finish eating," Spike said. "I'll even let you have the pleasure of using the axe." Dink heard Chip laughed. "With all those cinder blocks we brought aboard, the Goose will go down in 10 seconds. "Yeah, it should," Spike said. "Don't forget the box. We don't have that thing too." Dink felt Josh grab his arm and squeeze. On his other side, Rose let out a small gasp. Spike and Chip were planning to sink the Golden Goose. "Don't worry," Chip was saying. "I already put the gold in the dinghy." A chair scrapped, and the tattooed ankle disappeared from Dink's sight. "After we drown the Goose, we'll take the dinghy back to town," Spike said. "We'll lay low till we get the money from the old folks." He laughed. "Then we disappear." Dink felt his stomach sink. He heard more thumps and footsteps. "Make sure you don't leave anything aboard with your name on it," Spike said. "Paper float, you know." "Don't worry," Chip said. "Where's the axe?" The voices faded away. "Did you hear that?" Josh asked. "They're gonna sink this thing." "Shh," Dink hissed. Suddenly, the kids heard loud smashing noises, one after the other. Dink gulped. It was an axe striking wood. Then he heard the thump and footstep running up the cabin stairs. Suddenly he heard a new sound, the gurgle of water flooding into the boat. "Now," Dink said. He shoved the trapdoor open and scrambled out. Josh and Rose were right behind them. They stepped into salt water. Look! Rose pointed to a hole in the side of the cabin. Water was rushing in. What are we gonna do? Josh asked. Dink raced up the stairs and peeked. He saw Spike and Chip tearing across the water in the dinghy. They took off, Dink said. Come on. The kids ran up the stairs and sprinted toward the rear of the boat. Josh looked down into the water. Now what do? He squeaked. We jumped, Rose yelled, and they did. Chapter 11. Dink felt the water rush over his head. Some got in his mouth before he remembered to shut it. His eyes stung from the salt. Then his life vest shot him to the surface. He was floating. Josh and Rose were bobbing nearby in their orange life vests. You guys okay? Dink asked. Look, Josh said, pointing at something over Dink's shoulder. Dink spun around in the water. The golden goose lay on its side. A few seconds later, it went under. The kids heard a loud whoosh as the boat disappeared. We got off just in time, Josh said. Let's swim, Dink said. Spike and Chip might decide to come back to make sure the boat sank. Swim where? Josh asked. I can't even see land. But I see some boat, Rose said, pointing one wet arm. See those things sticking out of the water? Josh began splashing his arms. I think those are shark fins, he yelled. Rose laughed. Sharks don't have white sails, Josh. The kid began swimming toward the boat. Suddenly, Dink heard a roar. He wiped his head around, expecting to see Spike and Chip bearing down on them. Instead, he saw a large white boat. On the side in black letters, he read, Coast Guard. The boat zoomed up, then slowed. The kids bounced in the wave like corks. What the heck are you kids doing? A voice boomed from the boat. Dink saw a man in the white uniform standing on the deck. He was holding a bullhorn and glaring down at them. Dink tried to yell, but the wave filled his mouth with water. Another man threw 3 round life preserves into the water. Hang on to those, the man in white bellowed. The ring splashed into the water only a few feet away. Second later, Dink, Josh, and Rose were hauled onto the boat's deck. The kids huddled together. A group of men stood staring at them. The sun was warm, but Dink couldn't stop shaking. One of the men draped blankets around their shoulders. Well, the uniformed man said, I'm waiting. He stared at the kids with a strange expression on his face. You do speak English, I hope. Josh grinned. Yeah. Do you guys have anything to eat? I'm starving. The man laughed. The man holding the bullhorn grinned. Okay, kids. First you tell us why you were swimming to Cuba. He said. Then we feed you. Awesome, Josh said, as burst after burst of fireworks went off in the sky. It was 10 o'clock on New Year's Eve, 2 days after they'd been rescued by the Coast Guard boat. The kids were lying on the lawn in Graham's backyard. They had just finished a lobster dinner, and their stomachs were full. Graham came out carrying a tray. Who has room for chocolate ice cream? She asked. Dink groaned. If I eat one more thing, I'll burst wide open. Josh sat up. I'll have some, he said. Graham set a tray on the blanket. Help yourself, she said, joining the kids. That was a super meal, Graham, Rose said. My pleasure, Graham said. You kids are heroes. Thanks to you, the police were able to catch Spike and Chip. We almost lost a lot of money. Well, Dink, as Josh said, you were right. It was Spike on the phone at the airport, and he did say take the dough. Graham Hathaway squeezed Dink's hand. You saved the day, she said. Dink blushed. Well, you guys helped too, he said. If it hadn't been for Rose, we wouldn't have been on the Golden Goose when those two guys can bake. They'll have sunk the boat and gotten away with the money. And Josh figured out they were lying about how to clean gold and silver, Rose said. I never even saw that in my book. Graham Hathaway smiled. I know 3 children who are going to get a reward, she said. A reward? Josh said. For what? The gold and silver Spike and Chip showed us was stolen from a museum in Miami, Graham said. The museum was offering a reward, and it goes to you 3. Awesome. How much? Josh said. Rose laughed. Don't be greedy, Joshua. Josh slurped up the last of his ice cream. I'm not greedy, he said. I just like money. Suddenly, a huge mushroom of fireworks went off over their heads. Red, Blue and green sprays of light cascade toward the earth. Make a wish, everyone, Graham said. I wish I had more ice cream, Josh said. I wish I had my own computer, Rose said. I wish we could stay here longer. Ding said. Our vacation went by so fast. Graham Hathaway gave Ding a kiss on the cheek. Your wish is granted, she said. You're all invited back this summer. So thank you for listening to my channel. So bye bye for now. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye.